26. The only reason I remember that is because I have a PowerPoint slide that prompts me because I lose track of things. And I was just saying to Katie, I can't believe it's just our 4th meeting together. So this is awesome. Just a reminder why we are here. We want to have, actually, let me share this for you all so you can see what I'm looking at. Get ready with this. Is it there?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. So part of why we're here is we want to have the funds for all of those we love and care for to have the best setting and the best life. We want waiver recipients to remain safe and supported fully. All group members want a system that supports people. We want care for the recipient of the Medicaid waivers. And we all agree on the importance of improving outcomes for people and ensuring that services are accessible, person-centered, and sustainable. And their shared commitment, even though we may differ on the path forward. And this is from your input in
Fran,
of last meeting.
Two slides at the same time. I don't know if that's intentional.
No, I have no idea how that happened. That's magic.
We're seeing, are other people seeing that? Yeah, I'm seeing like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 2 screens.
How interesting. Is it now just one and you're just seeing the like pictures?
Now we're seeing
Don't
nothing.
see anything.
People.
You can't.
We're seeing people.
Okay, that's what, okay, perfect. Not seeing anything is different than not seeing people. So we're seeing people. Perfect. That's great. A reminder, this is a public meeting that's live streaming on YouTube. So everything you say will be recorded and available to the public. So we want you to be mindful of that. You may not want to share information that is personal in nature. And you may choose not to speak and provide written comments afterwards if there's something you want to share that you're not comfortable live streaming. So taking part of the meeting means you understand and accept that what you'll say will be public. So everybody, not your first rodeo. Perfect. A reminder, if you are like me and not as familiar with WebEx, if you go to the upper right-hand part of your screen where it says layout, there's a toggle switch that lets you see people's names. So mine always shows up as not seeing people's names, so I always have to turn that off or on. So if that helps anybody. And in the spirit of arriving, I'm going to ask you to mute your phone, and I'm going to remind myself to do that right now. And then if you've got a piece of paper or however you take notes, I'm going to encourage you to have a personal parking lot. So if things pop up, you can record them so you don't lose them and we can loop back around, or you can send them to me at another time. And anything else you need to do to sort of calm the mental chatter in your heads, because we're all probably coming in from some other meeting. Okay. I'm going to try the screen share again. So let me know if you get sort of a double image here. That is so incredibly interesting.
Fran, I think you need to share your presentation in slideshow mode. I think it's just showing
no,
you previews.
no, I see what's happening. I got it. I see what's happening.
Now we're good.
Are we good now?
Yeah.
Perfect. And make sure I got the right meeting deck. Yep. I had 2 open. I didn't realize that. So what I have as our focus for today is by the end of the meeting, we will have updates from DHS, updates from adjacent waiver efforts, so including long-term supports and LTSS. I can't remember what that stands for.
Long-term services and supports worker.
Thank you, Julie. The expert panel, if there's other ones, we can do that. report out from some of the working groups, and those will just be brief. There have been 3 of them that have met so far, and 1 of them has met twice. And then confirmation on a working process flow model. Once again, we're shooting for B+, and our goal is to understand. We may not agree, but we're still in understanding mode. So how does that land for all of you? Cool. Julie, please, I'm going to stop the share.
I would just like to make a request of the task force, and I don't know if now is the appropriate time to do that. But we have talked about, when we kicked off our task force, the possibility of doing a preliminary report to the legislature. And given the volume of concerns and the reports that we've heard about when we will get information and when things will be able to be accomplished, I would like to ask the task force if we want to send something to the legislature or make a request to the legislature. The session has just started. If we needed to do a bill or do something, that would need to be heard by March 27th. So that's something we would need to talk about now. Otherwise, if we do a preliminary report, for example, after the budget range models are recalibrated, that's going to come in after session, and it's too late to ask for a change or share those concerns. So I think it's important in the timing of this group to decide, where are we at right now, and do we want to reach out to the legislature to do anything?
Perfect. And to work in transparency, Julie had given me a heads up that she was going to be making this proposal. So want to get a sense from all of you whether or not that's a place that you want to put some attention today. So this is a great time for us to use kind of our standard red, green, yellow model to go for that. Before we go to that though, any questions of clarity? Okay. So the proposal is that we modify the agenda a little bit in order to have a conversation about possible legislation or other ways forward while the legislature is in session. So can you just red, green, or yellow how you feel about making that part of our focus today? I've got 2 greens.
How do we do that again?
Just go in the chat and just put a green. Just type green or a G or.
If you don't have a chat, it might be a bubble on the right side at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, perfect. Or you can even just go like this and then I know. So it's perfect. Awesome. So it looks like everybody's sort of in the same place. So that's fantastic. All right. So let me share what had been the meeting plan for today. Oh, Heidi, speak to the yellow. What's your concern about that?
Sorry, just having to find the unmuted. I'm not used to WebEx.
No.
I am cautiously okay moving forward in that direction. I just with DHS hat on and just wanting to walk the line between like being a DHS executive branch employee and being a member of this task force. So I'm not saying no, we shouldn't go in that direction. I just want to own that I feel a little awkward, but I'm happy to go forward in that conversation.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's really helpful. More, I'm noticing you nodding, so I'm sensing that you're kind of in the same place. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. So then let me share with you my thinking and you all can tell me how you feel about this again. And again, I'm like you all, I am not as familiar with WebEx. I suspect a few more meetings and we will have this down. Katie's good? Perfect. So where the meeting plan had been that we're at sort of bullet point 2 right now, which is welcome startup, meeting logistics, and et cetera. I would have gone next to status and updates from DHS and adjacent groups. My proposal, I think, is that we proceed with any status and updates from DHS, so we all sort of know if there's anything changing in that space. And then if you're okay with this, I would have us move to Julie's proposed agenda item first, because I feel like that may take a fair amount of time and benefits from conversation. And the updates from the adjacent groups and from the work groups is something that, to me, we could handle via email or other ways. And that we put our priority first on the idea of what we might want to get before the legislature or the governor's office. So can you all live with that as an agenda adjustment? All good? Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. That's a great question, Tricia. The question was, would the updates inform the conversation? I don't think so, but if there's something that emerged in some of the breakout groups or in the LTSS or the expert panel, let's just bring it forward. So we'll sort of bring it forward as discrete items. Does that work for you, Tricia? I'm seeing you nod. You're good with that? Okay. So we won't lose sight of that. Perfect. So before I go much further, a reminder, we already have done it, but we're going to use the red, green, yellow shorthand. So green means, yes, I can support it. Yellow, I can support it, but with caution. I have some concerns, and you already saw that demonstrated. And red means I really have some concerns, and I want to tap the brakes on this. And as you, again, have already seen, what we'll do is unpack those, particularly the reds and yellows, to make sure that we understand those concerns and figure out our best way forward. A few grounding requests, and these are the ones we've been using for the last few meetings, so hopefully it comes as no surprise. Katie, good? Katie, I will always look to you that way, so you don't have to speak, you can just thumb up. Okay.
Great.
Okay. The climate we're trying to create is one of inquiry, including listening and reflection. And I'm always monitoring for us, are we generating more light than heat? Again, our focus is on understanding. So let's ask deeper questions, reflect back what we're hearing, but really make sure that we get to not just a surface understanding. Ask your help in sharing the air. So if you can bottom line your points, this is really just a matter of time management. In a group of this size, time's going to go by quickly. And if you've spoken recently, I'm probably going to choose on other folks and have them step forward so that we can just kind of hear from a broad array of voices here. We're going to try to minimize our use of acronyms and jargon. And I think I'm pretty quick on the draw when I hear an acronym because I don't speak the language. So I apologize for interrupting, but I'll probably ask you what that means. And then I'll ask your help in practicing good virtual meeting behaviors. So turning on your camera if it works and if you're comfortable, using the raise hand function if you're comfortable with that. But I do try to keep an eye out for hand waves. Minimize distractions, including the use of chat. And as we've talked about before, the use of chat is kind of like the virtual equivalent of being in a meeting space together and people having a separate conversation nearby. And it's just such a distraction. So I'm going to ask your help in minimizing that use of it. And we'll use the chat to answer specific questions. So is there anybody that can't live with those requests? I'm not seeing anybody. Any other requests, because you know how we all work together now? Okay, I'm not seeing any. As a reminder, we have a list of stakeholders that are vested in Waiver Reimagine success. I'm not going to read the list, but this is a list of about 18 categories of people that we generated together at the December 2025 meeting. And unless I hear from you otherwise, I am going to jump right to DHS for some updates.
Thanks, Fran. This is Kayla Oftedal. Deputy Director in Disability Services Division at the Department of Human Services. I have joined you for the last few meetings, but I'll brief you again on my demographics. I have brown skin. I have glasses on today. I have my hair up in a bun, and again, I'm sitting in my kitchen with a blue background and some art decor. And I have a pink zip-up sweater on today. So thanks for having me here to provide some updates about Waiver Reimagine. Specific to the project and the project team that's been working within our agency. So sharing out that our legislative report, the legislative report that is to be provided to our legislature in advance of our CMS waiver plan submission, is currently planned to be in draft form in March of 2026. So that's a similar update that I provided last month. And at this time, we have no change in our timeline there. Our 30-day public comment period, we mentioned this last month that there was an adjusted date of April 2026. We are continuing to reevaluate that adjusted date. We are looking at how there's a specific portion of the waiver plans that are needed, which is called Appendix J, and that needs to be included in what is posted publicly or published publicly for public comment. And that Appendix J requires added information from HSRI. So we're looking back on our timeline and double checking our timeline and evaluating and trying to reconcile when are we going to get the data that we need from HSRI to best inform Appendix J that gets put into the draft waiver plans and then published for public comment. The next piece is that the CMS waiver plan submission, right now we have a date of July 2026, and that is no change from last month. Again, that date will also be adjusted if we have to reevaluate that 30-day public comment period. Sharing a little bit more, last time we had heard a little bit about the governor's decision not to run for re-election and if that had any impact on Waiver Reimagine as a project. And at this time, no, there are no impacts to the Waiver Reimagine project related to Governor Walz's decision there. We talked about kind of the greater landscape, an update about the greater landscape in human services, both at a state and federal level around funding and resources. And currently there's no impact to Waiver Reimagine there as well. I will go over a few other updates from last meeting and then I'll pass it to more Heidi to see if there's anything you all want to add. But from last meeting, a few things that we heard last meeting that we wanted to provide a little bit more clarity on is that there was feedback that DHS has altered or removed information from our website related to the project scope. And so we wanted to re-up that, share that with this group that we are intending and have been intending to update websites to keep people engaged and up to date with most relevant information. So there is likelihood that over time that website either has or will continue to shift and alter as we know more information, and we'll publish that as we have it available. A second item from our last meeting was an update around HSRI and when they will have some preliminary budget model information available for us. And so we shared last time that we are anticipating more information from HSRI in February or March of 2026. We've since confirmed with HSRI that that'll be in March of 2026, and that this preliminary information is going to focus on what we call service mixes, which is part of the budget methodology, the budget model. And service mixes are defined as an estimation of the type and the amount of services that people in each support range, their living setting, and their age group are likely to need. And so in that, HSRI is actively analyzing our services, participants, waiver participants who are currently open to a waiver, the current authorization of their services, looking at utilization trends of our services, and that will help to inform, again, what we call these service mixes about the type and the amount of services that people will get in each of these support ranges. And so we are planning to review this information with HSRI in March when it becomes available to DHS. and then hoping to bring this at a high level to the task force in April of 2026. And then the last item that I'd like to add as a follow-up to the last meeting is there was a question specific to how HSRI's analysis is accounting for underutilization of services due to staffing issues. And so, as I mentioned in the update just prior to this, we did confirm with HSRI that they're currently using fiscal year 2025 data, both the authorization and the utilization of services, to help inform the budget model and the methodology. And while their analysis is not complete, which will be soon here in the upcoming weeks and months, that the analysis should help point to staffing shortages, and also that they intend to help us better understand that if we're seeing some things that we want to dive deeper into, that we can use benchmarks from other states around authorization and utilization to have a good understanding of where things are at and how to move next. So with that, I think I will pass it off. Heidi or more, if you have anything that you'd like to share as updates.
Not sure who's going first.
I can. Good afternoon. I'm Marvu, currently serving as the interim assistant commissioner of Aging and Disability Services at the department. And I think one of the questions, or maybe I want to give a little bit updates on the communication piece. The project team has done a tremendous job of really trying to get this campaign out, getting communication out so that our member of the public can see where we are at in terms of our waiver Reimagine progress and status. And right now we're just hitting a little delay in the process of getting that communication approved. As you all know, we have to go through a different chain of approvals, and so it's been sitting with the commissioners before we can get it published and get this out the door. So just know that there are a lot. I know we are all in need of really trying to see where we are, what type of information's out there that we can post it on our website, share with our community. It's coming. It just, like I said, we're hitting a delay at this very moment for approval. And as soon as we get that green light, we'll share that information. So more to come. Not quite the update you want, but just also know that we're working very hard behind the scene. And I think that's the only thing I have.
Okay. Heidi, do you have anything?
I don't have any additional updates.
Okay. Just because there's one thing I want to go back on just with Kala for just a second, just because it feels a little jargony, and because you speak the language fluently, I want to make sure we land the implication of this. You said that in response to a question from this body about how HSRI is accounting for utilization, and then you said they were monitoring authorization and utilization. So just connect like because of that, what does that mean? What's the implication of that?
Sorry, have trouble time finding my mute button. I think what that speaks to particularly is there are concerns that have been raised by this group as well as others around perhaps our utilization trends or staffing shortages have impacted utilization. And so I think what the important piece was that HSRI is going to look at not only what is being used, but what was intended to be used or what was planning to be used to help inform, again, what helps to create that final budget methodology and what I referenced as that service mix. So I've heard in this group as well as others concerns about utilization trends may be low because of other factors, and how do we ensure that we're accounting for or budgeting for that to ensure that that's not the only thing that we're looking at as we're building out budgets, if that Does that help, Fran? I guess just,
Yeah, I think so. What I'm really hearing in that is that just because somebody got approved doesn't mean it's actually deployed. We're not necessarily using that. And so it's that difference, right? It's not just one number, it's a more complete picture. Linda Fairchild,
Right.
please, and then Linda Wolford. We're stacking up the Lindas.
So I'm concerned about the fact that we're going from all of these different DD, CAC, CADDY, VI to just independent living and residential. And how will HRSI then determine needs of different people? Those categories were created based on the needs that people have in those areas. It just seems overwhelming to think of us going from those specific categories and everybody understanding them to now two different ones depending on where they live. And I see now where the concern will be that will budgets be less because they're living in their own homes, thus meaning that they might be more independent, when reality is they may have way more dependency issues too. So I think we need to make sure that we're looking at all of those factors, that we're changing dramatically terms and technology inputs that we've had always in the past. I mean, those terms, those identities have been here for 20 plus years. And now to go to just a waiver that's based on where you live might be a little confusing.
Okay, so I'm going to just get ahead of this for a minute because this could be a very big conversation. And I think it's really sort of the through line through so many of our conversations. So if DHS wants to sort of address this in any way, but this seems like this is going to be squarely in the conversation in March when we're starting to talk about service mixes, and then April in terms of the methodology. I'm also hearing more your comment about how important communication is in relationship to Linda's comment. DHS, anything else you want to add on that?
hi, this is Kayla Oftedal again. I think I would add, Linda, thanks for the question. I think what I would add here is that the methodology will include what we call a support range. And it's the terminology we're using right now. And a support range is reflective of a person's assessed needs, which would include their general support needs, their health needs, and their psychosocial or emotional health needs, mental health or emotional health needs. And so with that, not only I hear you saying the living setting is important, age is important, but also this support range. General support needs include things like variables such as our ADLs, our toileting, our transferring, positioning, mobility, eating, etc. Will include things like our IADL needs, such as how people do housekeeping, laundry, meal prep, meal planning, safety planning, etc. And then also, again, it'll include medical or health needs. And then also look at that kind of what I mentioned as psychosocial, but behavioral needs, whether that's maybe aggression towards yourself, aggression towards others, property destruction, need of support for those types of areas. So I guess I just want to add that it's not just about your living setting. It's not just about your age. It's also about health and general support needs and emotional needs,
Okay.
mental needs.
I see all the hands, and just give me a second. I've got Linda, Wolford, Tricia, and then Chris in that order. And I saw Linda Fairchild's question, will min choices be the main method for determining right now? My understanding is yes, that's kind of what's required as a sort of given in order to hit the go live date. I just want to share like my facilitator brain for you. These are such rich conversations that really are the through line. And I want to be careful that if we've got other topics we want to cover. So all of these questions I have been tracking since we've started working together. So we're not losing sight of those things. So I'm just going to ask your help as a collective group managing the focus of the task force today. Linda Wolford, please.
Okay. From what Calla said, and I'm glad that Linda asked the other question because I was wondering the same thing, but that thing that I was wondering, so when we talked about like the budget planning, or how they're determined with the HRSI, and you said unmet needs and need like staffing. So for example, I work good with examples. I don't know how other people are. So let's say someone's assessed to receive a certain number of hours, let's say 14 hours a day, it's just throwing that out there, of certain kind of service. But because of not being able to find staff, they only utilize 10 hours a day. So how does that factor into the budget in terms of utilized, or is it for what they're assessed? And it might mean that some people can't find the staffing. So would that lower their budget because they're spending less? But really they're eligible for more, and the reason they're spending less is they just can't locate staff. Does that make sense? I hope that question.
Yeah, absolutely, Linda. That's fair. This is Kayla again. Thank you for raising the question. And I think we're going to learn more as HSRI comes back and does that analysis. I think we will understand better what that means, because they'll do an impact analysis that helps us to understand if there's a variance between what's authorized and what is utilized. Generally speaking, I think there is an overarching just assumption that oftentimes that people have more authorized services than what is used. So we'll have to decipher through that. But yes, we will get more information from HSRI about this.
I think we'll probably have like a whole dedicated meeting, if not more than one, in terms of just really understanding this. Tricia, I think I had you teed up next, and then Chris.
Thank you. And just to clarify, I wanted to let you know my questions are, as you know, plenty, but these are in response to asking for some clarification. So, I noticed DHS had a little yellow reservation about, moving totally forward. And I get that, but I don't understand totally, because what I think people have been saying resoundingly is yes, 2 waivers, 2 waivers, 2 waivers. Why does it have to be? And what's the benefit to having it based on that setting? Why wouldn't we want, I don't know, I mean, if you need to call it 1 waiver, 2 waivers, whatever, why wouldn't we just want it to be based on people's needs? Because if I need help with meal prep, it doesn't matter if I live in my own home by myself, in a home with my family, in congregate care. I still need that. That's a need. So I'm not trying to go back. I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And it seems to me to really fiscally seem like an effort to favor congregate care and institutionalization.
Yeah.
If you could explain to me why.
Thank you, Tricia, for framing that in such an operational way. So appreciate that. Heidi, I'm assuming your hand is, you would like to answer that.
Yes. Thanks, Trisha, for that question. And I completely understand why it seems that way, and why it seems that this is designed to benefit residential providers. And it could do that, but I also want to present the flip side. So we in Minnesota have a long history of developing group home model. I know that's not the legal term, but that's a common term. And people are often driven to that model. There is a push in that direction. And we've tried different ways. We as a state have tried different ways in the past to limit growth of the 4-bed group home model. And it just hasn't been successful, or as successful as it was planned to be. There are ways around moratoriums, there's different things. But one thing that we can do is we can limit growth on a waiver program, right? We've done that in the past. We've had enrollment limits, but you have to do enrollment limits on the complete program. So we can do a limit on caddy waiver, we can do a limit on DD. That limits the growth of the entire program. The reason that we've gone down the path of splitting out the waivers by where a person lives, whether they're living in their own home and family home or in a provider controlled setting, is we can then at the federal, with our federal agreement, put in limits and growth into the provider controlled waiver while continuing to allow growth in people in their own home. When I say growth, that means people accessing that waiver program. So we can say we are not going to allow more people to access the waiver program for people living in a provider controlled setting. Or we can say we're going to have limited growth. We are going to make sure that the people who need that are, I don't know, people who are given the first option of being supported in their own home. That's not how the conversations happen right now. And I know you all know that when you go to talk with a case manager who is overwhelmed by their caseload and you have a high needs person that is trying to figure out how they can live in the community, the first answer is often, let's find a group home. Let's figure out a community residential setting that can support this person. And we think by setting up the structure this way that we can drive it more towards how do we support people in their own home and in the community. It is a complete shift in how our state operates. And so to us, this is the first step to move towards that, but it very easily could flip a different way. And so we have to be very intentional on doing that. But that is the reason, that's the reason why DHS proposed that, and that's the reason why it's come forward that way.
think
Is
the
really because
reason,
of
though-
problems at the federal level.
If I can follow up, I think the reason though needs to come back to, that's what DHS thought would help the problem. I think what we're saying is that as stakeholders, we see some potentials for derailment here. And we would like DHS to go, oh, you're right. Maybe this is. So let's listen and figure it out. And I want to go back to, first of all, what drives that push into congregate care is typically because we can't get the needs met at home. The budget isn't sufficient. We're not getting authorized for the appropriate services that meet the need. And then once the group home, let's say, is determined, or congregate care setting is determined to be the best, some of the problems are, why are we getting this, high budget, yet the person who's working directly with my loved one is not getting paid very well? That's, I think, a couple of the questions we have when we start talking about, I understand you're going to limit enrollment. I don't think that fixes the budget problem, and it certainly does not address the needs problem that I think we're saying, thanks for the great intention of thinking this might meet the needs, but we're saying, whoa, we don't think it's going to work that way in any way, shape, or form. Can we work together to find some better ways? And maybe that is going from yellow to green, even with your DHS hat on. Just
Yeah,
throwing
so
it out
just a couple of things, like DHS didn't think of this on our own. We did extensive partner engagement in 2018, 19, 20, 21 to develop what that proposal was. So it wasn't us in a room alone deciding that, but based
No,
on
it
that
wasn't
public input,
evidence-based.
decided.
Wait. I need one person to have the floor. So Trish, I'm going to ask you to let Heidi finish, and then we'll let you have additional remarks. And then I think I'm going to pause this because I think this goes into the conversation with the agenda change. So I want to make sure that we get the other hands answered as well. So Heidi, please finish your thought.
Yeah, just that, so based on that input, then this was the direction that DHS recommended going. A lot has changed since that feedback was gathered. That was, pre-pandemic, we all know that the world has changed. And so absolutely we can have these continued conversations. Like I said, it's the direction that we want to go, but it could easily go a different way so it is very helpful for us to hear like what the concerns are with doing that. But I also just want the group to understand if we do divide waivers based on need type or anything else, and in the future we have growth limits, we wouldn't be able to distinguish where a person lives in order to have those growth limits. It would need to apply to the full population on the waiver.
To the first point, I'd say if we have different information now, let's be willing to pivot. And I guess if I'm the only one, I'll have a follow-up conversation later. But I don't understand why basing it on need would have to unequivocally result in the blanket growth limit. I hear what you're saying, but I don't understand why. And if that's not something we can go into now, I understand.
Let's put a pin in it for now, Tricia, not because it's not important, but I think this will be part of a conversation we will get a sense of when we're talking about Julie's proposed agenda item, in part because right now, as I understand it, this is defined legislatively. So any changes to this would have to be at a bigger level. So, and that's where our conversation is going to go. So I don't want to lose sight of that. Chris, and then I think Linda Wolf will put her hand down, and then I've got Katrine, and then I'm going to tap the brakes on this so that we can go to that agenda item.
Thank you, Chris, parent, also old nurse. Some of my questions were answered in other people's comments, so I appreciate that. I want to go back to what Kala said, and Kala, I'm not going to do you justice on this, and I apologize. It's chicken scratch notes here. But the budget methodology, my understanding, is still based on Min Choice 2.0 and going forward. And I know that I have said it a number of times, and I need to say it again, that we understand that that process is not perfect yet. And that those the data that comes out of that does not have inter-rater reliability. There's not a system in place to ensure that it's not garbage in, garbage out. And as a nurse brain, if I'm assessing a person, they may come in with a heart attack, but they're diabetic. I'm still going to look at their feet because I'm a nurse. A social worker is going to have a different view on that. And so we have different people plugged in and different experts in those areas. And I want to be so very cautious about this as coming from a process brain of how, please tell me we are going to have a system in place to ensure that there is some sort of certification or verification that the people doing the Min Choice assessments have a checks and balances to ensure their competency and accuracy. Because what we saw, not anecdotally, but what we saw across the board when we went from Min Choice 1.0 to 2.0 was a sudden drop. And then we can't appeal. We can appeal, but that's literally a waste of time and resources. And so I still continue to have this deep concern as our train is derailing. We know it's derailing, and then we're just adding more cars to the derailing train. Heidi, I mean this with the deepest respect, and I just need to say it. Our words matter. And so when you said high needs person is a person that has higher needs or may have disability services, but that person, unless it's me asking a lot of questions, I'm high needs in my questioning. But can we please use person-centered language around the people that we serve respectfully and kindly? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Katrine.
Hi. Just a couple of points. Context is everything. And I've met with some people who participated in these preliminary groups back in 2018, and they weren't told that the model's going to have a financial incentive for congregate care. All of those pieces were not made clear to them. So when people talk about categorizing things, there's a lot of context that was left out. And the other thing that is really concerning is that when we met with legislators, they were told, and I can even point out the language that misled them, that these changes were required by CMS. And when the legislators are induced to act based on misinformation, that's a big problem. And so we have to correct the information for them.
Thank you, Katrine. Okay. I don't have the ability to lower anybody's hand. So I'm going to ask Chris and Katrine if you can figure out how to lower your hands unless you still have a question. Okay, no, it's okay. We're all figuring out WebEx together. Perfect. I want to open up our conversation to Julie's proposed topic focus for today. But my spidey sense says we might benefit from a little leg stretch. So how do you feel about taking about 10 minutes to just stretch your legs, get a little fresh air, and we'll come in and focused on that meeting. So 10 minutes, is that okay? That'll make it about 2 after the hour. Perfect. I'm going to try to capture the essence of this. Chris, you're north of the cities, is that right? Are you getting snow? Are you north enough to be like in the blizzard zone, or are you still in the sort of
I'm
relative?
I'm in Brainerd, and yeah, we were right on the line. So we got a freezing rain, a whole bunch of slush. But I think north of us is a lot worse.
Yeah, well, Callie was saying even that because she's south, she's like near Mankato, and she was saying that
Oh,
they may have like school maybe the kids may be pulled out of school like they were having so much. So it stopped snowing here. It's a little bit going sideways, but it looks like we've got like these north-south bands.
oh yes, it was so windy last night. A lot of people lost some trees, but
Oh, really?
haven't heard of any power outages. But yeah, when I drove this morning, it was pretty rough.
I grew up in New Hampshire, and all of our power lines were always above ground, and I always lived in wooded areas. So whenever any of that happened, we for sure lost our power. And my mother's really like so super savvy, and she would always fill the washing machine with water so that we always
Oh,
had like whatever 8 or 10 gallons, whatever they hold, of water to like do the rest of life with. And I
that's so
always think,
smart.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I grew up in Iowa, and our power lines are above ground for the most part too, and we would fill our bathtub.
yeah, right. My bathtub drains never held water very long. This is too much information, but
Oh,
like they always
my
leaked.
my grandma grew up in the Depression, and so she was very frugal, and she would keep empty milk jugs in her bath, in her tub, and she would fill them up as her water was warming up before she took a shower, and that's what she used to water her plants because she didn't want to waste any water.
That is brilliant. My mom was a Depression era child, like, and so that's where she's got a lot of her, like, she just sees the world through that kind of a lens. Like, where's the opportunity to conserve? Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
brilliant. The collecting water. I find that like when I don't finish my like the water I'm drinking, if I'm gonna go for fresh, like it always ends up in my plants.
I water my dogs with mine, yes.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. I think this explains actually why my plants are often overwatered because I often am not finishing the water for the day.
Yes. Oh, same. Jug I've been carrying around for 3 days now. I just keep adding ice to it. Yeah.
Right, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I'm a massive tea drinker though, so that
We have a
probably
really
doesn't.
cool We have a really cool tea store in Brainerd where it's an herbologist that owns it, and she like custom blends your tea on how you want to feel or what you're feeling currently. And it's the coolest place. So she has some custom blends, but then if you go in and say, say I feel like this and I'm struggling sleeping or anxiety, whatever, she will mix you up your own blend and it tastes heavenly. She's so
That
good at it.
that's brilliant. And so like you can just
Mhm.
go in and sort of like
Mhm.
I always think like a
Yeah.
custom cocktail, right? Because I've done those.
Yes.
So yeah. Oh, that's
It's called,
interesting.
but you can get dry tea, so it's not just a
Yeah,
cup of tea, but
yeah,
you
yeah.
can buy the package, so she'll make you your own package. It's called the Good Village.
That's cool. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, she's a good friend. We did farmers markets together, and then she was so successful. She opened up her own store. It's really awesome.
Isn't that a great story? That's a great like success story. I just absolutely
Yes.
love that.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
she'll make tinctures and balms and that for you, for people as well. It's really a cool place.
Yeah. Yeah. I I wish I was this person. I'm not, but I just have so much respect for folks that like understand kind of how herbs work and
Hmm.
right, like the chemistry of herbs that way. Um, so powerful.
It is. It is. I know as a nurse, I want to rely
Right.
upon pharmacology, but my brain relies more nature-wise. So,
Yeah. Isn't that like food is medicine kind of thinking? Is that? Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I see people starting to come back, so that's great. Awesome. Now slipped away. Perfect. If you're back and choosing to leave your camera off, not a problem, but just give me like a high sign or a wave or something that says that you're there, just so we get a sense of folks in the space. Awesome. And you also have another minute, so I don't mean to rush you all. I saw Dr. Kate, so that's great. Nice to see you. Awesome. Perfect. Perfect. So we want to take this agenda item up, and I don't necessarily have the wording exactly right, but if it's B plus, I'm going to ask that we sort of roll with it if we can. So let me share this with you, and hopefully we've worked together now long enough that you sort of see that I try to come with a methodology. Let me make this a little bigger. I have on this agenda item that our desired outcome will be by the end of this conversation that we would want to have two things. One is a sense of direction related to the task force taking strategic action with the legislature or governor's office related to the direction and or implementation of Waiver Reimagine, and that we want to leave with a preliminary plan for next steps. So let me start with that first one. And this will be a great red, green, yellow question. That we want to leave with a sense of direction related to the task force taking strategic action with the legislature or governor's office related to the direction or implementation of Waiver Reimagine. So if that is B plus or better in terms of our desired outcome, can you just give me a red, green, or yellow in that, just so I have a sense that I captured the spirit of it? I love one letter is great. That's awesome, folks. Thank you. I'm seeing all greens so far. And Moore and Heidi, if you all do yellow, which is fine, I'm going to assume it's the same reason, and that is your role within the organizational structure of state government. Perfect. I'm going to take those greens as a win, so that's awesome. And then the second one being preliminary plan for next steps. I'm not going to ask you to red, green, yellow that one, because really that's going to always be something we're going to figure out, where do we go from here. So this is awesome. So I'm going to ask that we come at this methodically. And it feels like this is such a big question that using the numbers that we've got in front of your names as a way to virtually have us be seated in a circle together. So anybody can start. We don't have to start with any number, but whoever we hear from first, we're going to go upwards consecutively around the room so that we hear everybody's voice in this. And so you can pass. I can come back to you again if I need to, but I want to make sure that people weigh in. And I'm going to ask you to get to the essence of your point just from a time management perspective. So before we start going around the circle, I just want to do a really quick temperature check. How many of you are planning anyway as an individual to reach out to legislators or the governor's office in this session related to Waiver Reimagine? Just kind of give me a sense of get a sense of whose energy is already in the space that way. Okay. So we've got a fair number of folks. Okay. So then my first question would be, what would the task force be asking of the legislature or the governor's office? Really, what would be your desired outcome? And whoever goes first, then we'll start to go around the room. Linda Fairchild, please go, and then we'll go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So don't even need your hands. Linda Fairchild.
So I think we need to ask for difference in the time frame. We can either look at this right now as we have so much to do in such a short period of time, and is it just going to be haphazard and has to be redone again?
Okay,
Then we have wasted all of this time since the start of this process and not made any really change. So I think that has to be the main thing. Are we doing it haphazardly just to meet the time frame, or are we going to look at it as a realistic thing?
gotcha. So time frame change. So Linda's number 4. So I'm going to go to person number 5, and you can +1 that or add a dimension. So who's number 5? And if I don't see a number 5, I'll go to a number 6. No problem.
It's
Number
Private
Kat-
Katrine.
Katrine is number 5. Perfect, Katrine. Yeah. Okay.
Hi. You know, there are obvious Olmsted concerns. Um, and you know, I think the timeline issues and the Olmsted concerns, and waivers needing to be based on needs instead of setting and location are probably the big ones. Incompatibility with the Ware nursing amendment. If that doesn't get incorporated in the design, then that would violate existing statute. Um,
So Katrina,
yeah,
help
just
me, because I'm hearing the concerns, but if you could boil it down to like a single request, like we'd be asking the legislature to X, or we'd be asking the governor's office to what? I heard Linda say, adjust the time frame. What should I be hearing you say?
I think we need to push out the timeline so that the task force can meaningfully review the plans so that we can have some hold harmless protections. I think the most important thing right now are the timeline issues.
Perfect. That's helpful. Thank you so much. Katie, I might ask you to help me. Do you see a number 6?
Yeah, 6 is Julie.
It's
Great.
me.
Julie, thank you.
You already heard what I thought. My ask is really specific because I've done some research in this. I agree. It's a timeline thing to make sure we have all the data we need to make sure implementation can be rolled out well. So I think we would be asking for support to edit the Human Service Omnibus Bill from last year and enter the date. Writing the bill would be really easy. It's just editing one line in there to give more time so that we can come back to the legislature with a comprehensive report.
Perfect. That's helpful. Linda Wolford's number 7.
Yes, I am. I know this is probably bringing up something that might not be, but I still am really stuck on the assessment. If that assessment is faulty, like someone else said today, garbage in, garbage out, that is my biggest concern. Is if we're married to an assessment that's not accurately assessing people's needs or some types of people's needs or whatever, then I just don't think then we're just going to be wallowing here. So I don't know if there's permission to say. I mean, there is. I think people know. I know for being a DHS, there's an instrument out there that's already on the shelf that many states are using called Intera. That's been normed. That's been like, are we better off keeping throwing money into Min Choices? I know we've thrown a lot of money, and that's hard for people to think that we might have wasted it. But is it better to keep going with this and spending more money, or just say, can we look at what the cost, like just doing some analysis around what if we change course, at least have a discussion on it.
So Linda, I'm going to go back to my operative question, and that is your specific request to the legislature or the governor's office would be what? Just really briefly.
Would be, do we have to continue down the path using Min Choices assessment?
Perfect. So
is that
change the
simple
assessment
enough?
change.
Right.
Perfect. That's great. I'm looking for 8. Jenna.
Um, I had a thought.
We'll give it to
We
him.
could do. We could put up. We could make signs and give it to the.
At the Capitol.
Yes.
And I'd like to add my one thing, and I think this is Jenna's too, besides signs,
Yeah.
would be she's thinking of the process of going to the Capitol. We always make signs.
Yep.
But I'm really concerned because every example we've gotten, the original chart in 21 and then the new chart that we just saw in the last couple days, there's no way Jenna could survive at home on that funding. And so I don't have any confidence that this won't do harm to some individuals with highest needs. And I can't feel okay with moving ahead unless we have some assurance that people like Jenna and others would have the services they need. It seems more about methodology and making everything pretty, but it isn't going to be pretty if people are institutionalized that should be at home.
So am I hearing your request, Jenna and Cindy, to be something around either changing the time frame in order to revisit the approach or to, in general, revisit the approach?
Right now,
Yeah.
right now, I don't have any confidence that it's going to work for people. And I don't know if that means changing the approach or if it means the exception process or something that assures that people have what they need and that they're
Okay.
yeah. And
Okay.
and it seems like it got worse with the new chart for people living in their own home.
And I just want to come back. I just want to come back to something. You said there was a new chart in the last couple of days. I don't want to open this up for a conversation, but can you just speak for a second on where that new chart came from? Because I don't know of anything being issued by DHS.
I'm not sure. I just saw it online and it was a refiguring of the numbers. The numbers were refigured and they were lower. The budget amounts were lower. And so
If you see that, if you could send that to me, that would be super helpful. We want to just make sure that people have as accurate data that they can. And so that would be super helpful if you don't mind doing that.
and we have like 5 or 6 examples of people's actual budgets that
Yeah.
I think we need to really look at those, because if it isn't going to work for people, then we need to rethink it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks for that. And more, is that what your question was? What was the chart? Okay, perfect. Gotcha. Number 9 is Jennifer. Jennifer, what would be your specific request to the legislature or the governor's office?
Fran, is this a good time to kind of update about the other committee that I'm involved with that kind of correlates with this, because that's kind of related to what my ask would be.
Yeah, pull those pieces through it in order to land your ask, please.
Okay, so I'm also on the LTS Advisory Council. And in there, we are tasked to, hold on, I'm trying to make my screen so I can read off of it, but I can't make this smaller. Hold on. I'm gonna try to figure it out. Hold on, I'm sorry. No, I'm gonna just have to put it over your guys' face. Sorry. Okay, so I'm part of the Minnesota Long-Term Services and Supports Advisory Council, and that was just established right around as this task force was established. So it just, both of them started at the same time, and they're contradicting each other. So in this task force, we're looking at breaking down the waivers and setting them into where do you live, where, you know, we're just looking at that and what does that look like, what's the impact going to be, and everything like that. Well, in this advisory council meeting, it's tasked to find a huge savings out of the state's budget by the oh my gosh, sorry, by July 1st, 2027, it's going to be triggered. And the amount is almost $200 million out of the waiver budgets. And so when you're looking at having that huge cut out of the waiver budgets, I think everybody needs to know that, because it's not if you find that amount or if you get close to that amount or if you even find some savings, it's if you don't find that amount, then there's a contingency plan. So if the council is unable to identify the recommendations meeting the targeted cost savings, the contingent spending reductions will be triggered on July 1st of 2027 in the form of reductions to the competitive workforce factor and the institution of a county share for residential disability waiver services. So that is what they are going to cut to save that almost $200 million if this advisory council that I'm part of cannot find the $200 million to cut in savings by the next biennium budget. So I think that has a lot to do with what we are tasked for doing here and what we're working towards, because it is contradicting. So right now our worry is our budget's going to stay the same. Our budget's going to have enough to continue meeting the needs of what we have at home for our loved ones or our clients and things like that. But it's on a huger level that we're not aware of in this setting right here, right now, that there's $200 million that the state is needing to cut, or they're going to cut other programs regardless. They're going to do something about it. And I feel like that needs to be part of this discussion too, because things are going to get cut.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It affects me too, like emotionally, because I see the need is not even met for individuals on waivers. And then here they're wanting to cut almost $200 million. So I just want to put that out there that I think the advisory council and the request to cut $200 million needs to be frozen until we get this piece done first. We can't do it at the same time. The harm will be caused because of that.
So your request then, well, first of all, thanks for being on both groups and acting as a bridge. So thank you for that. Your request then is which one get paused?
The LTSS Advisory Council.
Okay.
Because that's the one that's looking to cut and have the legislative, where is it? It came from the legislative 2025 first special session. Chapter 9, Article 2, Section 58 was the reason for it. If that can be put on pause.
Perfect.
They're doing it in anticipation because the increase of average costs, including inflationary rate adjustments and enrollment is increasing. So they know that there's increased enrollment, and so that's why they're wanting to cut it. I don't think that's fair because needs are increasing within the state. We should be looking at ways to find more funds to fund the programs to help people live their best life possible.
Perfect. Perfect. Katrina, I see your hand. I'm going to ask you to wait. I want to go around the circle, and then we can loop back if there's questions or comments on that. So Chad, from your perspective, what would be the request to the legislature or the governor's office?
I think I would share the remarks as far as we need more time, need to kick out the dates this stuff is due. I feel like we're really operating on incomplete information. I mean, you even heard DHS today saying that, what is it, HRSI might have that wrong as far as acronym is going to have more data on those budgets. But I mean, to move forward without having full time to really dive in on that information, you can't say this is going to meet the needs or not. And so you're really buying more of that time so we can vet these things and know what are we operating off of exactly, instead of being like, well, we think it's going to be this. So having those specific numbers and figures would inform, the group as far as, what people's needs won't be met. And if they're not going to be met, what process do we have in place to make sure that those needs are met?
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And I think Gretchen is next. Gretchen, are you there? If you're talking, you're muted and we can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Now we can. Yep, perfect.
I agree with what's being said. Same thing about delaying. I'm very concerned about the rollout, given the fact that some of these dates are changing. And based on our experience with CFSS and how that rolled out, I think time to gather more data and reliability is important for the residents we serve.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Thanks. So now it's 12.
12, and I'm looking for 12.
I don't
Katie?
see a 12.
Okay, then we're going to go to 13. Heidi.
I can't really speak to the substance of what the request is to the legislature, but did just want to say that the legislature may say this is under DHS's purview, and it is not. We do not have the flexibility to change the implementation date or change the parameters of Waiver Reimagine. And so just wanted to provide that context to the conversation.
Perfect. Thanks, Heidi. More.
I think Heidi covered great on the DHS hat, but I'm going to really put on my Waiver Reimagine hats as a member of the task force. And I agree that in terms of just the execution plan, we have a marching order of this is what we need to do. But if I could put a request, I would say timeline, push out the timeline so we can be able to address all the concern that has been raised in this space.
Okay, thanks, more. Trisha, number 15. What would be your request to the legislature or the governor's office?
It would be to look at the dates and pause until we get the data we need.
Perfect. Lisa, number 16.
Yeah, thank you. In the spirit of being succinct, just echoing a lot of what others have said already to this point in terms of timelines, with some potentially weaving in of the issue with the assessment as the foundational tool. But I think it's been made more clearly and more eloquently by others. So just echoing those concepts.
Yeah. And this is just a way for us to see if we're divergent, if we're converging. So it's great. I don't see a 17, Katie. Do you see a 17?
I do not.
Okay, then I think it's Mike. And hopefully your mic is going to work, Mike. This happened last time, the last 2 times. Okay. If you want to put it in the chat, Mike, I'll invite that, if that's okay. Your request to the governor's office or legislature. And we're going to invite you to, I think, to the pre-party next time so we can get your technology checked out before the meeting starts, because this is now a pattern officially. And I think that's the highest number. So we'll go to 1, who I believe is Dr. Kate. Am I seeing Dr. Kate here? There we go.
You want to put the part about the CAC waiver?
Delay implementation.
Okay.
There's a specific reason for that, but I have to put it's on a different computer.
Okay.
Okay, it's not reading. It says, the main concern I have is whether the proposed budget rangers will support people's service needs. In particular, people with high support needs who currently use a CAC waiver do not seem to be represented in the current process being developed by HSRI. The current budget ranges are not adequate to meet the needs of people using a CAC waiver who live in the community. People with high support needs seem to be relegated to an exception process which has not been defined. For me, this creates a lot of uncertainty about how people with high support needs will be supported in the community. I think once HRSI work is completed, it needs to be carefully assessed by DHS to ensure its model serves the needs of all service users.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Chris, your request to the governor's office or legislature.
I echo similar to what Dr. Kate said, having a kiddo with a CAC waiver, that is a real concern for us. But when we, I guess my request would be twofold. If we go together as a task force and voice our concerns, that our entire task force has a real actual concern about this marching orders that's marching off a cliff, that carries more weight than 3, 5, 7 parents that are just standing up there saying our concerns. So the weight of it has a higher level, I would think, of raising the concern to legislators. And then the second part of that is these decisions are not impacting a widget factory. They're impacting actual people. And when I lived in Iowa and we changed to privatized Medicaid, people actually died. And so I think a lot of our number of an acceptable loss is 0, but I don't think that that's everybody's number. And so when we saw like Real ID came to a screaming halt, even though there was a lot of money lost there, we knew that system was flawed and broken and it needed to be scrapped and started over. But when we have real life, real humans that are going to be impacted, at what point do we stop and say, people are going to die? I don't want it to be people I know. I don't want it to be anybody.
Yep. Yep. Thank you, Chris. But the essence I'm getting is it's to pause and do more rigor in the process. Am I getting the spirit of that right? Chris?
I'm not sure that the current process is the safest process. So if it's pause and regather, or if it's pause and scrap it, I don't know, but it needs to be evaluated.
Okay.
I don't know how to say it any louder
Yeah,
without
that's great.
you know what I mean?
Yep. I'm going to say pause and reevaluate just in my numbers. Perfect. And Meredith.
I don't think I can say it any better than everybody before me said it. I think we should pause the timeline.
Okay, perfect. And then Mike put in the chat, I'm participating in this group representing the Olmsted office. My comments about the project focus on the choice and the integration mandate. I cannot speak to the request to communicate with the legislature. So thank you, Mike. And I want to make sure that we put you in early and get your technology figured out in advance. So I think we're going to be brief here. Katrine, I just thought I saw another hand, and I see Linda Wolford.
Yeah, I just think this is worth mentioning.
No, okay.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Hang on, Linda.
Yeah.
I have Katrine on hold, so hang with me.
Hi there. Just a couple of points. Budget cuts that can violate Olmsted if they risk institutionalization. So I just wanted to thank Meredith for bringing the LTSS task force into the meeting. We need to also probably go over the numbers again, because this model is not actually going to save any money. When you have a model that incentivizes congregate settings, it's going to increase costs. And so I think we need to redo those numbers.
Okay.
There will be no savings.
I'm hearing like a reevaluation. I also want to acknowledge Dr. Kate. I think number 4 was Linda Fairchild, and she kicked us off. So it was a while ago, but I think we got her covered there. So that's great. Thank you. Thanks for the backup, though. Linda Wolford.
Yeah, I just want to mention something quickly because it hasn't come up, but I know this is where the legislature is focusing its efforts, and it's on fraud. And we haven't talked about that. I think it's kind of an elephant in the room, but what part of that and combating fraud, because when someone said people could die here, that's where my mind went, is that in this, and I understand where this is coming from. I'm not debating it, but can that have an impact here if they're worried about fraud? And this is, I'm speaking now from MCD, where I'm coming from's position is that we're most concerned, and our legislative agenda is centered around making sure that in this space, of the legislature being so focused on methods to combat fraud, what about the lives of people with disabilities who's at the mercy, right? They might be with an agency, they've done nothing wrong, but if the agency's payments get cut off and your staff don't get paid, where does that leave people? And does that play some part of something that we should be engaging on with the legislature, because it could have a major impact on, if that's what they want to focus on, then I think Waiver Reimagine, even though it seems down the line, I don't think we can separate that, because that's what has the attention right now of the legislature. I think I can pretty safely say that, and I think not too many people could dispute that, but we haven't talked about what role that might play here in implementation, as they're looking at strategies, and there's a bunch of them that are, around fraud. So I just wanted to mention that because it hasn't come up.
Okay. So I don't know that I captured everything in my notes, so bear with me, help me out here, but I'm getting the sense from the group that the broad consensus is sort of an umbrella of pausing for a series of additional things to happen. One is like maybe a broad reevaluation. Another is we've got other moving parts with LTSS and others, and to sort of land one plane before flying another, for lack of a better term. I'm hearing pause in order to look at the Min Choices assessment deployment in service to this. And sort of, and a whole bunch of other things for sure. But did I get the spirit of these?
Fran, I would just add to your list. I thought I heard a number of people say one of the key reasons to pause is to make sure there won't be like undue harm.
Right. Undue harm. And then I want to capture Linda's fraud, perpetuating fraud. Okay. Perfect. Linda Wolford, I'm going to ask you, or I'm going to ask Anna to please lower your hand, and Julie Johnson, you've got the floor. And then I've got another question to tee up with all of you.
I just wanted to comment on something Linda said. I think making sure that we have a full, complete picture rolling forward does tie into program integrity, maybe not fraud specifically, but there's a lot of talk around program integrity and making sure that, we're doing things right and we have a full, complete picture. And I'm probably jumping ahead because I've been thinking about this for a while. The question is, and maybe DHS can't answer this, but not in your, you can't make a request to the legislature, but in a beautiful world, given everything that DHS is up against right now, including not being able to hire the people that you need to, and not be able to meet some of the deadlines that were passed in legislature last year because of capacity issues. What is the time frame that's needed to make sure we have all of the information that we have so that we can create a solid report to the legislature?
I'm mixed about whether we take that up or we take that as another kind of conversation as we develop your proposal going forward. So you okay with that, Julie? Okay, so that's awesome. And Katie, I'm going to trust that you're capturing some of these things because I'm kind of dancing as fast as I can. Okay, that's awesome. So here's my next question. And I'd love to hear from at least 5 of you. We won't go completely around the room, but I want to hear from 5 of you. You all have written letters, testified, met with folks, right? Is that fair? Like you've already sort of done these efforts. My question is, what feels different now that would allow you to, the task force collectively, to have greater efficacy in moving the needle? And I will acknowledge maybe speaking with one voice is one of them versus everybody being an individual. But what else has changed that might in some way signal that the governor's office or the legislature may be open to what you might be proposing? I've got Katrine, Linda, Jenna, and then Linda Wolford, and then Julie. Katrine, please.
Sure. So as the organization I'm representing was a part of the statutory language that ultimately resulted in the task force, I can confirm, also having spoken with Chair Noor and legislators, that their intent for this task force was to be a stopgate with oversight, with review and input on the design. So just briefly chatting with them and informing them that that's not how it is functioning, they immediately asked me to bring these issues back to them.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there's people in the legislature who are interested in this, that may get behind this.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. That's great. If I lose the order, I apologize, but we'll get everybody. I've got Linda Fairchild and then Linda Wolford, then Jenna, and then Julie.
I think I have a different take on it, that I don't think that there will be a change in the legislature. There's so many other things, and with no budget money, that the whole purpose of this was to cut funds. They've done their job, but yet, like others have said, the need is there. We can hire all the staff we want, but if we don't have a budget that pays staff that will stay for us, or pays those of us that own homes or whatever, that we can pay our bills, then it's all for nothing. And I don't, I see people listen, legislative people listen, but they listen, and when they vote, it's different. So they're voting because there is no money. So how do we deal with a system that has no money? I truly believe the current system could work. We just need to tweak it. And why are we spending all this money on revamping everything? So let's tweak a system that is effective right now. And it does look at everybody's needs and things. But to revamp and then know that budgets aren't going to be met anyways, that seems kind of silly to me. But
So I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, Linda. What I'm hearing you say is, when I ask the question, what's different now that might make you more effective? I'm getting the sense from you is that you're not necessarily seeing a change. Okay, thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to ask you to lower your hand. Linda Wolford.
I guess maybe I'm an internal optimist. They created the task force. So in my mind, they are interested. And as Trine said earlier, people are interested. So why would they have created the task force if they weren't open? And I think they recognize that this is a hotbed and that it's maybe not turning out like they thought. So I think that by creating the task force, if they didn't, that would have meant they weren't interested in hearing things. But I do acknowledge that with our budget forecast, and they're squarely saying it's waiver budgets that are going to put the state in the red in ongoing. So I think that they are in a rock. They're also stuck between a rock and a hard place, but that they maybe are looking to this group for creativity at how to implement. But I think one of the challenges is the three groups coming together, because sometimes it feels like it's too much, and why aren't we just all working together as one? I don't know.
The three groups being the task force, the LTSS, and the expert panel. Is that who you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Linda. Jenna.
Well, we just discussed a little bit about Jenna's, based on right now where the numbers are, Jenna's budget would be reduced by 80%. And how do we move ahead with something like that? And 5 other families that we've done the numbers for are in the 50 to 60% range. And this is like across different waivers, different groups. And that's going to cause such extreme chaos. There's a moratorium on group homes. And where are people going to go? What are they going to do? And I don't think it's responsible to approve this system and move ahead when we already know that that could be the result. So I'm just pleading and let Jenna live at home.
Or I will not be here anymore.
Jenna feels really strongly about it. So that's my point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I want to be careful that we know that the data is old. And so I'm hoping that when the new numbers come out that we can get new ratios, but I know that there's no given on that. And I'm going to ask Jenna and Cindy, if you could lower your hand, that's super helpful. Julie, please.
I realize it's a big ask. There is budget and financial realities here. I think we can point to some really concrete pieces of data that we do not have to be able to do the work that we need to do to create a report. It's just simple. We don't have the data. We're not going to have it. The testing won't be done. The budget ranges won't be out in time for us to vet those correctly. I think the legislature does care, if you've been listening to hearings about continuity of care and everything that's going on and making sure we're rolling it out. Is this a big ask? For sure. DHS asked and they didn't get an extension on the timeline. But I think we won't be doing our job if we don't, if as a group, this is what we feel like, if we don't go back to the governor's office and the legislature and share it, we're not doing our job.
Okay. Any other perspectives that have not been represented addressing the question, what's different now that might make this request get backed? Anything else? Trisha, please.
I apologize. I put it in the chat and I just think there's one thing that when we were in front of the legislature, they agreed on, and I think everybody here knows that the data shows it is cheaper to keep people in their own homes. So when you're looking for 200 million, what a great opportunity would it be to create or design the system to support more of that to save some money. I know it sounds oversimplified, but did we even look into that?
Perfect. Chris, and then I'm going to ask another question.
Thank you so much. I wanted to lean back on the training and expertise from Dr. Colleen Week. She does a really wonderful presentation about disability history. This feels like history is repeating itself, that we are going back into favoring institutionalization. And I think that's what's different, Fran, is that it feels like you can feel the heat from the fire. We're getting so close to this that it's an actual threat for our own livelihoods.
Okay. Thank you for that. Chris, you lowered your hand. Okay, perfect. This may be my engineering brain, so I'm just going to ask you to grant me a little grace on this. But I'm wondering what, if any, like data you have would be useful in landing this request sort of more concretely. Heidi, please.
I'll just amend that a little, Fran, data that they have or that they can request from DHS that we can provide to support. We can do that. We can provide data to support what the requests are.
Okay, Heidi, I'm going to take that as an invitation. with what you know of where this group stands, what is the kind of data that this group should be requesting from DHS to substantiate an argument that the governor's office or the legislature might be able to entertain for a pause for a whole bunch of reasons?
Good question. One thing that I think.
Hang on a second, Heidi. Trisha, I'm going to ask you a real favor, and that is to not have the chat. Like, I'll have you bring it out. Just raise your hand. But I don't want the chat to be a distraction. And it is for me. So I'm going to ask your help that way. Heidi, please.
I know that there was a comment earlier about the min choices revision implementation and the impact that that has had on people receiving services. So I think that that would be one question that I would ask is, what was the impact on budgets with the implementation of the min choices revision?
Okay. Implementation impacts. Okay.
And then I'll have to do some more thinking about what other, but more, I don't know if you have other ideas of things.
And open it up. What other things could we ask about? And I did see that Trisha put budget methodology in there. We may not have that in time for the deadlines, but Linda, how about Linda Fairchild?
I think we have to look at how the impacts that are going to be of the CMS amendments that are already waiting for CMS to talk about. If there are no exceptions for any waivers, if family FRS homes move to flat rate, that's going to be a whole new huge dilemma. So I think we need to also look at what is going to happen in this next legislative session with whatever CMS decides based on last year's recommendations from DHS and how CMS is going to deal with them. I don't think people understand the fear out there from homes that if we can't pay staff and we can't safely take care of people, where are they going to go? Not going to be able to go to corporate homes because there's a moratorium and they have just as much shortage of staffing. And if exceptions aren't part of what can happen in the current world of DWRS, how will that happen in Waiver Reimagined? So I think those things, those budgetary things, because everything comes down to a budget, that if those are already impacts right now that everybody sees, what's going to get better?
Linda, I want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly. Among other things, this to me falls in the sort of bucket of like lots of moving parts. And until we know what the impacts are, it's just another thing that's moving. Is that the sort of what I'm
Yep.
getting? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Do we have most of them? Jenna.
Is there a way to get the budget methodology information from HSRI?
That should be ready for us in April. That's the date that Cal has been putting for our April meeting. So that's a preliminary item on our agenda. We can certainly see about getting it sooner, but my sense is, and I don't think Cal is here right now, my sense is they've been asking for it sooner too, and it's not. More, I'm seeing you nod. Do you want to speak to it?
That's a reason right there to delay.
Okay.
Because until somebody can tell me I went into a SOX home what the cost is, if she goes into an ICFMR what the cost is, and if she's home. That's the only way we're going to be able to tell them. We don't have the information to be able to evaluate that. And given that information, if we give that information to the legislators, that would be very important.
Okay, so the data point being we're not going to have enough time to plan because we don't have the data. Got it. Thank you. Dr. Kate.
Kate asked me to mention it because it's too long for her to type. One of the things with the delay for CMS approval, if it goes in comes whenever and comes back in August, there is not enough time to ensure that people's services are going to be able to be established, because there's going to be need a role for like support planners or whatever CFSS calls them. They're called support planners under CDCS, of training people, support planners, case managers before implementation, which will cause a massive chaos in implementation.
Okay. Thank you. I think I've got Trisha next and then Linda Fairchild.
I think this just brings up another really good question about if DHS doesn't have the budget methodology and the other important data that they need to make sure Minnesotans with disabilities aren't going to be irreparably harmed by the implementation, doesn't that warrant going and supporting, like, as an entire task force, DHS members, employees as well, to say, we can't do this without knowing in good faith that we've done everything we can to protect Minnesotans. Like, I understand there's hesitancy when you work for DHS, but we all need to think about acting as we all care about Minnesotans with disabilities first, regardless. It's a time to be courageous and brave, knowing what's at stake.
Okay.
I'm not saying that you aren't, I'm just encouraging to just nudge it a little further that way.
That's awesome. And I don't know, Heidi or Moore, if you want to, like, I might have misrepresented where DHS stands with the budget methodology. So I don't know if you need to correct anything that I've maybe misled people on.
You are good, friend, on our end.
Okay. Heidi might feel otherwise. Okay. Just want to give you that chance. I'm assuming that Jenna's hand is going to go down. So I want to make sure that I'm not stepping over that. Linda Fairchild, and then I want to ask a new question.
I think there also needs to be a rolling implementation of not just a year, but when DWRS came into play, we had 4 years for every group because it was such a dramatic change to get used to things, that I think if you do it like with if the flat rate goes into it, it's automatic and there's no methodologies for tweaking things or whatever. I think there needs to be that this is what it's going to be. You need to look at your budgets. Can you survive? Can you not? So that it's not affecting people right then and there. I mean, that's a heart attack waiting to happen in my world.
Yep.
That I don't want to just be jolted. So I would like the state to look at implementing that there is a process to look at it. Is it working? I think that could have been a better check and balance system in the current frameworks. That, okay, there were issues, so let's tweak those issues. Let's not create something new. So I would like to see that rolling out of, not just rolling at every SA, but give it 2 or 3 years to be implemented before any changes are made, and so that people have an idea of what's going to happen. To say right now it's going to happen in 2027 when everything else in the state of Minnesota is so up in arms, that seems to be very scary and not fiscal.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. Katie Pratt, I'm so glad you're raising your hand because I was trying to figure out how to bring you into the conversation.
Thanks, Fred. Well, we might be going in the same place, so you can tell me. So, this is great. And, listening to you all, it's like, okay, there's a number of arguments as to why at the very least, a pause should happen. And most of those arguments to me are along the lines of, we don't have enough information to guarantee that this is going to be successful. So my question next is, what's the risk? Let's just say a very modest ask, a delay of a year or 15 months, so that, you know, that one line that Julie was talking about in the bill gets changed. What's the risk? If I'm a legislator thinking about that, what's the risk of changing that?
What's the risk to whom, Katie? Just land it that way.
To the state, to the state.
Okay. Perfect. Gretchen, please.
Okay. Well, I can tell you the risk to the counties, the amount of appeals we would be forced to deal with, and the fact that I'm guessing most counties can't hire staffing right now due to budgetary constraints. The amount of appeals would be massive for counties to handle.
The appeals if it's delayed or if it's implemented?
If it's implemented and people aren't there's massive reductions in budget, people will appeal to their lead agency, which is a county agency, and that puts burdens on county reps for handling appeals. We're already faced with delay in appeals, so that's one risk.
Yep, thank you for that. Julie.
I would say the risk to the state is we have a fiscal imbalance and there's money. It's about money. There's a cost to this, and we're not in a place where anybody wants to spend money. But I would counter that with, if we do this wrong, it's going to cost us more and create more chaos, more harm, and more capacity issues for the department than if we pause and do it correctly.
That's great, Julie. That's where I was sort of hoping that answer would land, is that the concern, the reason to push through with the deadline is a concern about a fiscal imbalance, which, you know, as Jennifer, you pointed out, that's a real concern too, right? That could have impacts to people. But what I hear you all saying is that there is a cost to moving forward before we're ready that may, you know, that may undo any benefits to the fiscal imbalance. It's hard because we don't have enough data to put those numbers in, you know, super concrete. But anyway, it's just reflecting on that.
Yeah, it's a great question, Katie. Thank you. Linda Fairchild.
I believe it was a $50 million budget cost for moving it back for the 1 year. So if it was $50 million a year ago, there's still going to be an issue with that, the cost that from the budget forecasts and stuff. I think we need to be aware of that too. That's what I've heard from the legislative people, is that we've already got this budget deficit because we didn't implement it, and that's why they want to implement it. But that seems to be the backwards way, because then we're going to have even more issues. So let's do it right the first time. So
Perfect. I'm going to just pick on a couple of people here to get their voice in this. And then Katie, unless you've got other. Okay. And then I'll start our initial approach on this. Chad, I'm super interested. What's your take on what you're hearing? Is there anything you could stand behind, or what's showing up for you?
Well, it's something I haven't really talked to anybody from DHS about, but we do have this issue of the withholding of Medicaid funds. So I don't know how that could impact this going forward. As far as I believe DHS appealed that. So background, there was CMS is withholding a lot of the Medicaid funds due to allegations of fraud, right? And so with that, they're requiring a corrective action to be taken place, and that proposed plan. Now, Heidi or some did, Ash can probably present it better than I can, but I guess that's more of my thought is, does that impact this somehow as far as how this moves forward? I mean, things are pretty much in motion, so probably not. But I guess I kind of pivot to a question there. My concern is, I mean, if we delay this, are there other federal actions that could take place that could put us in even worse place potentially.
Right. Right. Lisa, I was going to pull you in. Do you mind sort of weighing in from your perspective as ombuds person?
Yeah. Well, again, I just want to share just an appreciation for convening this kind of a conversation and being able to share all these perspectives and considerations, because I think, yes, it's a both and, it's an all and, it's kind of all of these things that as I don't remember exactly who, my apologies, alluded to earlier, there's so many things going on right now, and it's all kind of tangled up like a bowl of spaghetti in my mind in so many ways. And sort of, if we think about trying to pull one thread, to mix metaphors, like what unintended consequence or impact is that going to have on other things? And it feels to me like so much of the discussion, not in this group, but just kind of largely, including, at the legislature, conversations are being had in really siloed ways. And that is increasing, I think, the potential for those unintended consequences. And thanks to Chad for raising, even just the not knowing some of those things and having questions as yet unanswered, I think is going to really be a critical sort of point of information as a foundational stepping stone for us to try to build where we go next here.
Okay. Okay. So Katie, you're okay? Okay, so let me just ask a really brief red, green, yellow question, and I'll ask you to put the answers in the chat. And it is based upon this conversation and this exploration. Red, green, or yellow, the degree that you can get behind submitting something to the legislature, submitting something to the governor's office. We'll figure out what that is in a minute, but that you would get behind moving in this direction, that the task force is taking aligned direction, among other things, to ask for a strategic pause for a whole bunch of reasons. Just give me a sense of whether you're all in the same place that way. Seeing green, 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 green. See one yellow, I'll come back to it. Couple yellows, green. I'll let people continue to weigh in. Chad, would you speak to the yellowness of your comment?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not against the process, but it's trying to be as precise as we can. People have noted a lot of concerns, but I think the more simplistic and straightforward we can have it, probably the better. And if we can, again, there's costs to everything, right? But anything as far as what we're proposing to narrow those costs might be an important piece too. With it seems like it's gonna be tough to pass things this session anyway. So to really be narrowly tailor that as much as we can is just comment I want to make. Can absolutely do that. But yeah, so the idea itself is great, but just would have to know kind of what that final proposal looks like.
Yep. In fact, that's going to be my next question. So your timing's perfect. Let me check with Moore. Moore, you are also yellow. Do you want to put some words to that?
I am putting yellow just for the, like I said, for the goal of where we stand as DHS. And I'm going to leave it at that, but I do want to just acknowledge the concerns, the risks that everyone had brought up in this group. I mean, that was something that DHS initially had requested when we were giving the timeline to implement. And we went through the different type of risks, how we can mitigate the concerns, and that's where we land where we are right now. So I like I said, I support the goal here.
Yep, I hear you. Okay. I may be incorrect when I say this, but my sense is the task force has one shot at this. And so Chad, I'm going to bounce it to you if you're comfortable with this. if there's one shot at this, how would you suggest the task force proceed in order to try to have the greatest and most effective impact?
Well, I think it's kind of tough, going to the meeting. I didn't know what this was going to be part of the conversations. I think it's tough just to put me on a spot and say, what does that look like? Because also people had so many ideas. So just kind of getting them all in one place would be helpful with that. So I wish so I feel like I can't answer that completely.
Yeah.
And then also it's something where, many smart lawyers at the Disability Law Center, I'd like to hear their thoughts and, talk to our policy folks too, that are going to know maybe more of the best ways to, approach those things. So sorry if it's kind of a non-answer there, but I feel like I was
No, it's
there,
a brilliant answer. Right on. Like I totally appreciate that. Katie.
Yeah, I just want to, I think just acknowledge that or point it out to the group, and this is very common in many of the processes that I work on. Some people are here kind of representing themselves and their family and their perspective. And some people are wearing many hats in terms of a community that they represent or institution or an organization. And that gives sort of different flexibility in what you're able to say, who you want to consult with. So, I think that's known to everybody, but just pointing that out as part of the process.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Katie. Trisha, please.
So I think that it would be very powerful if, as a united front, the task force as a whole, DHS and everybody, said, this is what we believe is going to be best for Minnesotans with disabilities. Understanding that there are other groups out there that TSS, this might be hard for them to find their 200 million or whatever it is, but to say, this is what we're charged with on the task force. So we're going to come to you and say, unless you can come up with a better idea or anyone else can, in order to protect Minnesotans and waiver recipients in Minnesota with disabilities, we need to pause this because it is going to harm them if we don't. And we are all representing the best interests of that population, regardless of our role. And I will say most of us here, I think, have been chosen to be on this task force because we represent multiple perspectives beyond just that of our own family and larger populations. Yes, it could be more diverse, but we're doing the best we can with what we've got. And I think we could come together and be that disability voice.
Yep. I definitely hear that sort of consensus around like the reasoning and all of that. So we don't have to necessarily unpack that right now. Julie, because you invited this dialogue, so I'm going to put you a little bit back on the spot. Do you have thoughts with what you've seen in the legislature and knowing this group? If we have one shot at it, what do you think is important in terms of the way that we may be positioned?
I think we need to, as Chad said, we need to look at what everybody's saying. We need to boil it down into 4 or 5 really succinct points, create a letter from the task force to the governor's office and the legislature. And then we need to go with it, with our specific ask, because before we could draft a bill that could be heard by the deadline, which it needs to be done by March 27th, we need to get permission from the legislature to have Liam or somebody in that world make that edit to that bill. So whatever group it is that wants to boil this down into some really concrete, this cannot be a huge report. This can't be 6 pages. This is very succinct, 5 things. This is what we need. We all agree upon that. We have to do that fairly quickly because if we're going to get permission, we have to go meet with the legislatures and or the governor's office, get permission to get that bill drafted. So, and unless timelines have changed, and this is an easy bill change, we need to give them 2 weeks to be able to get that heard and have its first hearing to be alive for conference committee. That's my recommendation.
Okay. Chad.
Yeah, just more on as far as trying to simplify this, and I think it's also trying to be realistic with some of these things, right? And so I think Heidi earlier on said can't push back this timeline. I guess I kind of want to hear more on that as far as the why to that. Maybe I missed something there as far as that, but also being realistic as far as back to this piece as far as the timelines, right? I mean, timelines seem like a realistic piece, but there were some members of the, so finding a united voice might be difficult because there's some members like, well, let's shelve the whole thing. And I
Right.
you know, if that's something people want, I think that makes sense, but that's probably not realistic at this point with all the time that's been put into this. So I think it's really reflecting and thinking, well, what could be realistic as far as these asks? So, you know, it's good to be aspirational, but I think to really, again, tailored as closely as we can, I think would be helpful. So our asks are very, very clear, and it's not one of those, you know, because I doubt they're just gonna shelve it at this point in time.
Yeah, I'll give it to Heidi. But what I have in my notes is, you know, kind of like, what can the legislature or the governor's office say yes to, and how can we give them a way to say yes, right? Yeah. Heidi, please.
Yeah, so in response to Chad's comment about when I said we can't change the date, the legislature can change the date. We DHS cannot change the date. There's no reason that the date has to be what the date is, other than that the legislature directed that. But I also wanted to say that the letter can come from the task force. We don't have to say in the letter, excluding the DHS staff. I mean, we can, as members of the task force, we can say that the letter comes from the full task force, and I'm fine with that. I can't go to the legislature and say, here's this letter from the task force, please read it and talk with them about it, but I'm happy to say as a member of the task force that I support the, well, I mean, assuming I read the letter and agree with
Yeah,
what
totally.
it says, like all of us would, but
Yes.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, I'm hearing that you wouldn't necessarily purposefully abstain. If there's something you can support, you can get on that. Great. Chad.
Yeah, Heidi, thank you for clarifying. I think I misunderstood what you said. I interpret it as like, you know, no matter what, there's no way to stop the timeline. So that makes plenty of sense. I appreciate that.
Perfect. So on this particular topic, I'm on my initial approach. Linda Fairchild. You're muted, my friend.
So I'm wondering if our legislative counterparts for this committee were on with us today, if they could have given us guidance on things that they see. And I think that's a sad fact that they couldn't be here with us today, because I know they're in session, they have busy jobs, but I think that would have been a really good segue to know what can and can't happen.
Yeah. But let's think about that in a minute. Jenna, please.
Jenna wanted me to say if we go this direction, she thinks that she wants to make her signs and go talk to people with a straight message, and she has seen in the past where people have listened to her because and she wants to, that's why signs are important to her, because
Brilliant.
yes, so thank you.
Brilliant. That's great. Let me tell you what's percolating for me, and you all can tell me if this works for you. We have a work group defined that's called Policy and Practice. And they haven't met yet. I think we're scheduled to meet on Monday. And I think Trisha's in it, Gretchen's in it, Heidi's in it, a couple other folks. I'm wondering how you as a task force would feel, and if that work breakout group would be willing to maybe take a first draft at this letter, informed by the dialogue that's happened here today on behalf of you all, and that we figure out a way to sort of get task force buy-in, because it's not that that group is going to do it on your behalf. We'll have to loop it back around. But let me just check with, I don't have my chart up, and I apologize for this, but task force, the work group members are Trisha, Lisa, Gretchen, I think Meredith, I think you're on that. Is that something you'd be willing to entertain doing on behalf of the task force? Meredith's got a thumbs up.
Could
Lisa's,
you repeat the ask again?
yeah, and I'll be there to help, like.
Right, I just want to be clear.
Yeah, it's really to take what we've discussed and draft kind of a 2-page letter that could sort of get this process going so that we can move quickly. We would then make sure that the task force is looped back in around so that they have a voice in it, but that you're doing the first cut of that. I'm seeing a gentle nod. I saw Lisa's gentle nod. I saw Meredith's thumbs up. I see Chad's hand. Chad.
Yeah, I guess it's, we're gonna have lots of opinions on this, but like what timeline are we asking for then? That might be helpful to know to be precise. And so that's I think that's difficult for us to go through that right now, but that's a big thing too, is how much time do we want? And then, if the goal is for us to be able to, write a report to them, when would we, have that? So really trying to think of that timeline as a critical piece of this as well, as far as what we're specifically asking for.
Perfect. So the first timeline that I'm paying attention to is there's a March 27th deadline, right? That I got, I think, Julie, from the legislature, and I think Katie Pratt had forwarded that to me in terms of introducing things. So it strikes me, if we can, with the raw data that we collected with all of you here today, that we may be able to move fairly quickly. Like my hope is by the end of our work together with the breakout group on Monday, that we would have, a B+ kind of rough draft based upon this. And so you all have to tell me, but my hope would be that we would be able to get something. And if what Julie's saying is we have to get permission before legislation is draft, that we just sort of keep this baby moving in order to try to have the impact you want to have. Tricia, before I go to you, Gretchen, did I see your hand as a question, or were you saying that that was okay?
I was trying to give a thumbs up.
Okay, perfect. That's great. That's what I thought. Want to double check. Tricia, please.
So a couple of things. Timeline for us to get this letter. I'm not sure if, it would be important for us to know, do we need to give them 2 weeks? Do we need to, all of that, and to be sure on that process and procedure
By the end of next
standpoint.
week.
Another thing that would be ideal would be, because if we had a meeting every day for the next 6 days, we might not get it hammered out. But in order to be representative of the task force, one, people are going to have to check their email, read it, and respond. And secondly, I would really like if we could send out maybe 3 questions to every task force member to make sure that their priorities and concerns are being reflected in this letter. In a way, I think 2 pages might even be a little too long, but if it comes from the entire task force, I think that's
1 page.
okay. But do you know what I mean? Like, to take what we get Monday, flesh it out, put it into a succinct, document, and then, like, Chad said, there are some things we do have to be very specific on, or we're just going to get more questions and get put off.
Yep. So this is not my first rodeo doing this kind of thing. So I just want to sort of share that with folks. The questions that I posed to you in many respects were to get that first round of data, Tricia, right? Like, what would you be asking for, and specifically why? So I think we've got a fair amount of that original data.
The only thing, there's some people who aren't here today that I would love for them to weigh in on, like the legislators and things like that.
100%.
100%. To give them the opportunity.
100%. Let me let you know a couple of things that I sort of have a little bit in motion already, because Julie had said this was coming up. So one is, I think if we drafted something out, we could send out a draft to everybody on the task force. And I think you're right, that very specific request about people checking their email, we're going to count on them to do that, to move this along. So that needs to be agreement. But then we can get people to see, is there anything that's conspicuous by its absence? Make sure that people have a voice in there, right? I think we could ask from a work group perspective, if legislators who are in session have any staff people that may be able to join our work group session on Monday, so that we just invite them right into the conversation and help them sort of frame it from us, at least from a staff perspective, in order to just get together shoulder to shoulder to see what we can do. If they can't make it, totally get that. But I want to sort of have a little bit of a bias toward action if we can. I saw Tricia's hand and then Julie's hand.
I would just ask the question, what would happen if we made the meeting on Monday open to the work group members and anyone who feels that they would have some significant insight into this process? Like I can't recall who's all on the group too, but I know there are a couple people who've said some pretty important things today about the process and about the procedure that it might be helpful to have their input on Monday. I don't want too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, I will let you know that's a little bit of my concern. If you're okay with us taking it under advisement, but I can pretty much, I want to guarantee that everybody will have a chance to have a voice in it and add their perspective.
Yeah,
So
and I
it's
think too, we could say, here's the name of the folks on the work group. If you'd like to reach out to them and make sure that you have some very pointed
perfect.
comments, that might be good. My only concern about legislative staffers, do they have a lot of power to do or say anything beyond, I'll take it back to, but that might be better than nothing as well.
Yeah, I think it would be, I would be asking them, what are the areas of concern for our representatives so that we know how to like bring them into the conversation in effective ways. But I think that idea, I think that's a really great suggestion that we share with the task force who the representatives of that work group are so that folks can to do it that way. I want to, in order to be agile, I'm really sensitive to the size of the group at this point, but I think
would
that's a great way to
also-
get that.
And lastly, our co-chairs.
Yep.
I would like to just kind of have them weigh in if they're able to on, what do they think of this? Because I think they're important, really important to hear from as well.
100%. Let me go to Julie, and then I'm going to ask the co-chairs how they feel about this process going forward. Then I will ask the task force broadly if they can get behind it. And then I'm going to land our meeting for today. So Julie.
I think while that work group is working on creating this, I don't think there's any reason, and given the time frame, we could give the governor's office and the key legislative leaders in both the Senate and the House the heads up that we intend to bring an ask and that we're going to be giving a recommendation from the task force. But I think we can reach out to them now to say, we're going to want a meeting. We have an ask. We want to present this ask to you so that they know that it's coming. I always, just as I did with you, Fran, I feel like giving people the heads up is the best way to go.
Perfect. Katie, and then I'm going to go to the co-chairs.
Yeah, just sort of a process question with that piece that you're talking about, Julie, is the ability to sort of steward the communications to leaders, how to best flow that. So just an open question, that could be the role of the co-chairs, it could be the co-chairs plus Julie, it could be any, yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if the co-chairs might step into that space. Linda Wolford, I saw you video mute yourself. So whatever that is, could you unmute yourself so we can hear you weigh in?
Sure. I just realized that my camera was off because I had done a snack. But I think that makes sense that it come from the co-chairs. I'm just trying to figure out how best to figure out how to write like how do we co-author, does someone take the lead, and also for me this is a very busy time because I'm in the process of retiring from the state and there's God knows how much paperwork and some doctor's appointments, so it's not a good timing for me, but I want to be, I'm in full support of this.
Yep.
And want to do what I can, but I do want to recognize some limitations that I wasn't factoring this into my time when I've only got like a little over a week left.
Oh my God.
So yeah.
Well, congratulations
No,
on
that's
that.
to say that I will still be a part of this task force. I'm going to stay under contract with MCD to do this. So I will still be a part of this group. So but I just wanted to let you know that personally speaking, this is it's I'm already trying to figure out how I'm going to get everything done that I have to get done. So
Okay. Let's see how we can
but
make
yeah, I
that
think
easier
it's
for you.
really important.
Yep. Dr. Kate, how do you feel about this?
I think this is a good idea. I know little about the legislative process.
You know about the legislative process?
I
Okay,
know little about the legislative process.
okay, perfect. I'm tempted, Katie Pratt, if you're willing to help sort of steward this from your sort of extensive knowledge in terms of navigating this with other bodies. Are you comfortable, Katie, me sort of tapping you on the shoulder that way?
Yeah, I think we can put our heads together. I don't know this sector of the legislature very well, but I think between us and different expertise, we can figure it out.
Yeah. And then Moore and Heidi, I'm wondering, who is your legislative person? Is that Christy?
You're right. That's Christy Grom.
Okay, so we may want to tap into her expertise a little bit with this. So if you're comfortable giving Christy a heads up, that might be helpful. Perfect. And so, Mike, because of your Mike, I see that you put it in the chat. Thoughts on the proposed request for extending the time? Are there any budgetary impacts related to the current deadlines? If so, this budget pressure needs to be accounted for. That's awesome. I think we've got that on the list. Tricia, one more time, and then I'm going to start to land this. I need to check the temperature of the group in general.
That's fine. The budgetary piece, I think, once again, we come together as a task force and say the lives of Minnesotans with disabilities, don't put a dollar amount on it. And if you disagree with us, you're putting a dollar amount on it. Let's just be real clear.
Okay. So the basic concept, and part of this is to make sure I'm dotting my I's and crossing my T's, is the co-chairs to give a heads up to the governor's office and the legislators in terms of this is our plan. So there's a spirit of no surprises. And that the work group will convene starting on Monday to take the lead in consolidating this and drafting a letter, 1 or 2 pages, to sort of get this in motion. Our process will also include looping into the task force so that everybody gets a chance to sort of weigh in terms of what makes the letter strong, what would they want to change or upgrade to make it stronger, with the intention of trying to move this at a pace that allows us to take advantage of the March 27th target date in the legislature. I know that feels vague, but I feel a little bit like we're building the bridge as we walk across it. So I'm working with intent rather than specifics. So can you red, green, or yellow that very clunky framework that I just outlined? Co-chairs giving a heads up, work group taking the lead, full engagement of the task force to make refinements. Green, 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 green. Happy to provide support. Thank you, Julie. Green. Dr. Kate is yellow. So Dr. Kate, is that anything other than the process being a little unfamiliar to you?
Yeah, and I'm talking because it takes her too long to type. That is one of the issues of being a co-chair and going to the legislature. It takes her way long to type. And that's a utilization of energy concern. One double space page takes her 2 to 3 hours to type. The other is a transportation issue of if she's going to have to go in person, that means finding a place that's accessible. And Linda knows the same issues about that.
Yeah.
It's more of access pieces, not the idea, but the access piece.
Totally. Let us talk about how we can do that in the most effective way. Absolutely. Maybe Dr. Kate's providing her editing and her good writing that way rather than sort of taking the big lift in the overall writing. So thank you for making that request, and we can accommodate that easily. Okay, so I'm getting all greens. Tricia, one more point, and then I need to really start to land the meeting.
I know, I just wanted to offer to Linda and Dr. Kate, I mean, could this just be part of what we do when we're drafting the letter and then send it to, like, draft the heads up, send it to Dr. Kate and Linda to give the okay to as the co-chairs, edit, give the okay, but take some of that legwork off the legwork
Yep.
off the table. No pun
Yep.
intended. I love you guys. You know it. I'm sorry.
Yep,
Oh, I'm
that's
trying.
perfect. We're in it together, so we try to make it easier for everyone. So that is awesome. So I'm going to consider that a go and a decision sort of made by the collective that way. And like I said, we're building the bridge as we walk across it. I have that we've got just under 30 minutes of our planned time together. And I just want to check in on a couple of things with you all. And let me find my stuff, get my wits about me. There have been, just very briefly, there have been three breakout groups that have met. And then the fourth one will be meeting on Monday that we've already discussed. The early indicators group, which includes Katrine, Mike Tessner, Heidi, and then 2 staff from the data and QA group at DHS. They've identified about 7 or 8 areas that can act as early indicators in terms of the waiver Reimagine process. And then that next meeting is going to discuss ways to sort of monitor and measure those things. So that's been sort of moving along that way. The waiver guardrails group has generated a list of questions that they want to explore, including how do they agree that quality residential care is a requirement for a comprehensive system. They want to talk about the market realities related to staffing and start to maybe explore a little bit about the budget exception process. And then I lost the other one. The scenarios group started in a different place than I had thought they would start. So I've got to get another meeting with them on the calendar. That's Julie Johnson, Jennifer Ballinger, Chris, Senator Rasmussen, Callie was in there, and Curtis Bauman from DHS was in the first meeting. And we'll start to work on a process flow map. So I wanted to give you all just kind of heads up on where those stand. Any questions about the breakout groups so far? Okay, just wanted to kind of briefly close the loop on that. Jennifer gave us a brief update on the LTSS experience. Dr. Kate, do you want to speak to your experience on the expert panel at all, or do you want to wait till the next meeting on that? I'm going to take it as a next meeting on that, which is fine.
Next.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so I want to check in on a couple of things. This is going to be funny to see how you respond. So this was the original meeting plan of desired outcomes, including updates from DHS, updates from adjacent waiver Reimagine adjacent efforts, report out from the work groups, and the confirmation of a working process flow model. We collectively changed the agenda at the start of the meeting in order to focus on a topic that was more emergent. So I guess my question to you all was less about whether or not we got everything accomplished today and more give a letter grade in terms of did we have the right conversation in the right way? So just give a letter grade A through F in terms of how we work together today. I'm seeing some A's, A. A, perfect. Keep those babies coming. B plus, perfect. That's always the goal. That's great. All right. So I think we're in the right place at the right time. So that's fantastic. Let me share my screen again. You know, if we are in Zoom together in the next day or two, I'm not going to remember how to do it because of now being trained in WebEx. So please double check your calendars. The next meeting we have is scheduled for March 23rd from 1 to 5. That's a Monday. And the tentative focus will be around the service menu based upon the timing of things, and maybe hearing from DHS's data and quality group in terms of how they're assessing readiness for launch. So a little bit of data there. Then Monday, April 20th is the next meeting, and the intent there right now is to have HSRI join us and have a rich conversation about budget methodology and the development of that. The May 14th is a new date on your calendars, so we'll ask Adrian and DHS to put that on your calendars that way. Chris, right now, none of these meetings are intended to be in person, if that's okay. And then I sent out in the email, and I will send it out again, the doodle poll to schedule the June meeting. And I can't believe we're already planning into June. Okay. Jennifer, just riddle me this. Is March 23rd a holiday for the whole group, or? I'm not aware of that. Okay.
No.
Okay. We will miss you and we will loop you back in.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
It's our Treaty Day rights holiday.
Cool. Let me see if there's anything else from a housekeeping perspective. All right. This is great. I thought this was going to take longer to land. So I'd love to hear from at least 5 of you. Anything you need to say in order to feel complete for today? We can ask Adrian to send the reimbursement form out.
I felt heard.
Thank you, Linda. I've got more, and then Linda Wolford.
Just hearing the concerns and all the concerns that raised today is really reaffirming or validating that my team actually at DHS also we're thinking about the same thing. So it's really just knowing that we've been that your concerns are being heard and that we're actually taking that really into heart and considerations as we plan for this big project.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, more. Linda Wolford.
Okay, sorry, having some problem with my unmute button. I want to say too, I appreciate, and I kind of echo Moore's feeling like we all kind of feel more in solidarity, I feel like, after this meeting. I really appreciate Heidi's comments about why we might think about, because I know this is something that was talked about early on, that a provider controlled setting, that the intention wasn't that we make an automatic assumption that group home, as we're going to call it, congregate living, however you want to call it, is going to cost more, and that people stated that usually living in the community is, preferred. And it's the law. I mean, Olmsted, it's the law. And so I think us having this common vision, which I feel like we're all there. At least that's how I feel like. And so that's a good feeling. And so I just want to say that it gives me good energy to feel like we're all in the same philosophy in place and not as adversarial. That's how I'm feeling.
That's great. Let's hear from at least 2 more people in order to be complete. Jenna.
Jenna had to leave, but I just want to say I have a little hope now, a little hope that we're all working together, and we could, a bunch of people going in the same direction can do a lot of things. So thank you, everyone.
That's awesome. I'm seeing nods and thumbs up and hearts. One more voice in order to be complete. Am I seeing this from you, Mike? A-okay? Okay. Julie.
I think the conversation went better than I thought it would. I kind of hoped this is where it would go, but when I sent that initial request, I had some reservations about how this would land. So I appreciate everybody's input.
That's awesome. It is such a privilege to be on this journey with all of you. I think you're doing absolutely amazing work. So thank you for showing up as you're showing up, and thank you for allowing Kate and I to do the work that we do. Kate, I don't know if Katie, if you found the same thing, but I can only be as effective as the group enables us to be effective. And so it's really a joy. Do you have any landing comments, Katie?
Yeah, I mean, I excuse me, I'm really sick today, y'all, so I've been like hanging in there, but it's been encouraging to see this group gain a little trust with each other, even over just the 4 meetings, where I think we can say things that are hard and how we're feeling, and also challenge each other's thinking in what I feel is a productive way to get to really, how does this group effectively change this really complicated system? And it's hard as a facilitator to watch all these threads, like Julie, or who was it who said the bowl of spaghetti? It just resonated with me as so such a clear imagery for what you all are working through, as being in this bowl of spaghetti, and so many things are interrelated and tangled, and you don't really know when you peel back what's underneath there. And I wish it was clearer and simpler for you all, and certainly from a facilitation vantage, there's nothing clear and simple about it, but I think you're doing a really good job of leaning on each other to try and make your way through the tangle. So it's awesome.
All right. Anybody else want to take the floor? Going once? Twice? 3 times. You have 15 minutes back in your day from our work together. Thank you all. More to come. Keep an eye out for emails and meeting invitations and reimbursement forms. And Linda, happy retirement. I wish that I had some confetti I could throw down using this.
Well, it's retirement from the state. It's not total retirement. I'm still going to be working.
It's good.
So, but it's not the 8 hours a day. So yes.
We're so glad you're going to stay a part of this body, because your voice is critical. All right, we are done, people. Feel free to leave. I'm always want the last